Welcome back. Hope you had a lovely lunch. Hope you've come back to find a goodie bag on your seat. Please take home and enjoy. This afternoon is just as jam-packed, and we will have the first ever Women in Bus and Coach Awards. But first, we're doing a session on perceptions and allyship. So I'm going to invite Kerry Turner up first. Kerry is Head of Operational Delivery at First Travel Solutions and Mentoring Director for Women in Bus and Coach.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kerry Turner, recently appointed Director of Women in Bus and Coach. My day job is Head of Operational Delivery at First Travel Solutions, which is part of First Bus. I've been there for nearly 11 years, and I'm extremely committed to and passionate about my organisation, and grateful that they're in full support of my role with Women in Bus and Coach. As a long-standing member of the senior leadership team at First Travel Solutions, it's fair to say that at this stage in my tenure, I'm well established, I've achieved a great deal, and I'm really comfortable. However, I've come to recognise that warm and fuzzy feeling of comfort and content can be both a blessing and a curse. It can inadvertently and insidiously become disabling over time, because that familiarity and ease can quickly turn into autopilot and in turn a lack of challenge and stretch. Not being challenged can take you to a place where you barely acknowledge and recognise your own skills and expertise. Through perception, both your own and that of others, you can become pigeonholed into a particular box based purely on what you're currently doing or have done for a long time. It can mean that development opportunities don't even register on your radar, as you don't consider yourself or perceive yourself as in scope. And of course, you can also be overlooked. The Director of Women in Bus and Coach mentoring position provided a truly unique opportunity for me to really challenge myself, but with the comfort blanket of doing it alongside my existing role. I will say that it was still terrifying to apply, but I consoled myself with the fact that if it all went pear-shaped in the interview, none of the panel knew me. In preparing for an interview, you inevitably have to recap over your career and achievements. And whilst there's an unhelpful, self-sabotaging little voice telling you that you probably don't have a chance, just embarking on the process and throwing your hat in the ring, in and of itself, is so valuable for growth. It forces you to recall what you've done, what you've achieved, what challenges you've overcome, and God forbid, you might even take a moment to feel proud of yourself. When do we ever do that? For many of us, pride constitutes blowing your own trumpet, which for me vehemently goes against the grain because I've been raised up north, and in an era where it's actively discouraged and frowned upon to big yourself up. So, aside from a brief panic immediately after the interview, having recalled myself talking about burning bras, I came out of the interview feeling like a fire had been lit from long-forgotten embers. In truth, I came out of the selection process thinking, albeit cautiously, I think I might have some skills. I also came out of the interview wanting the position even more, something I had until that point only voiced internally for reasons of self-preservation. I hope it goes without saying what a huge honour and privilege it is to have been appointed and to be part of such an inspirational team of people who are wholeheartedly dedicated to achieving gender equality across the industry. The entire board have all got ridiculously demanding and sometimes multiple roles, families, homes, lives, and lots of other commitments, and they do this on the side, working really so hard to make the industry even better. By even creating this mentoring opportunity, Women and Bus and Coach are tangibly making a difference. So my advice to anyone who is in that place of perceived self-doubt is to feel the fear and do it anyway. The author of that very book also said that the wall that protects you also imprisons you, which particularly resonated with me. Your presence here today tells me that you are allies, that you are committed to changing the gender inequality in the industry, but it can't just be something that we talk about. It's not about wearing a badge or thinking about the good PR because it's EDI. It's about actually doing the right thing and taking action. So my challenge to you all as you return to your organisations tomorrow and beyond is to ask yourselves, as our allies, the following 3 questions. What are your organisations going to do differently to attract, develop, support and retain women? How will you make sure that you fully understand the lived experiences of your female employees at all levels so that you can truly comprehend those challenges and begin to mitigate them? And finally, how does your organisation plan to challenge some of the archaic behaviours and attitudes which are still experienced by women every day in the workplace? I'm going to leave you with a brief quote from Martin Luther King, who said, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. Now, on the subject of allyship, from JMW Solicitors, where she heads up their commercial road transport team, can you please welcome Laura Hadzik?
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, as you've already heard, I am a lawyer, but actually today I'm going to be talking to you about allyship, with a little bit of law, of course. So anyone can be an ally. Every single one of us in this room, in your organisations and in the wider industry can be an ally, regardless of age, gender, race, any other individual characteristics, and regardless of title, role, seniority or experience. You can all be an ally to members of your own community, as well as members of communities to which you don't belong. So every single one of us can choose to help support and encourage women to enter, progress and thrive in the coach, bus and community transport sectors. Now, the term ally has been around for a long time. Most of us want to be allies. Most of us probably think we are. But I actually believe the true meaning of allyship is often misunderstood. So what does it actually mean to be an ally? What does it take? Is it enough to call yourself an ally? Is it enough to think of yourself as an ally? Or even to tell other people that you are an ally? No. The word ally is not a noun. It's not a badge. It's not a label. You can't attach it to yourself. It's more than a buzzword. It's more than just being sympathetic and believing in equality and inclusivity. It's so much more than being a fan, a supporter who cheers at big games. You can't simply be an ally. Allyship's a verb. It requires action. No one-time acts, though. It's ongoing and meaningful action, where individuals, groups, and companies work to remove barriers for marginalised groups. In our world, women in the coach, bus, and community transport sectors. Active allyship is essential because it means that people with influence are working to break down barriers and open important doors. Diversity and inclusion doesn't just happen. If it did, we wouldn't be talking about just 10% of the UK workforce in the bus industry being female. So what does active allyship look like? First, you listen more than you talk, and you know your place. Being an ally is never, ever about you. When you're an ally, you listen more than you speak. You know when you should stand in front, to the side, or behind the person you support. The best allies spend most of their time behind. They lift others into the light and do not grab it for themselves. Second, you're uncomfortable, but you keep going anyway. Being an ally means you stand up and speak out for others, even when it's uncomfortable. You have to be ready for the pushback when people don't understand, and you have to keep going, truly adopting the mindset that I'd rather be excluded for who I include than included for who I exclude. Third, you mess up. You're willing to learn about those who are different from you, and you're not afraid to do what you can to support them, even when it means you make a mistake, because we all make mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from our mistakes and keep going. Fourth, you take accountability and you give back. You must be part of the solution going forward. We have to acknowledge our own personal responsibility for levelling the playing field so that others can have access to what we have. Giving back so that others can move forward, that's the highest calling of any ally. Finally, you earn it over and over again. You can't just say you're an ally, you must earn it. A social media post really doesn't cut it. Attending an event, reading a book, making one referral of a female candidate, or waving a flag really doesn't cut it. Being an ally is about repetition and engagement. You must use your voice again and again. You must act again and again. True allies are seen and accepted by the people they are trying to support, which means that true allies must earn that trust and their ally title. That comes with time and practice through routine and visible actions. I would urge every one of you to start to look for your opportunities to put real allyship into action. Move off the runway so that someone else has the chance to fly. Interrupt the interrupter so that your colleague can finally be heard. Stop sitting silently while the same voices take all the words in the room each time. Call it all out for what it is and change it. Turning to the workplace and organisational allyship, we all want our organisations to be places where everyone has an equal opportunity to grow and succeed. Research consistently shows diverse teams are more creative and far more effective. When we bring together individuals with different backgrounds, experiences and perspectives, we open the door to new ideas and solutions. In my day job, told you there was some law coming, I routinely advise coach and bus operators on their safety culture, particularly in relation to operator licence compliance. And I believe there's a powerful connection between safety culture and allyship culture. At first glance, they might seem distinct, but they share a foundational principle, the commitment to fostering an environment where everyone feels valued, protected, and empowered. Cultivating a strong allyship culture is therefore akin to nurturing a strong health and safety culture. Both require our participation and commitment to create environments where everyone feels safe, valued, and heard. Safety culture is about creating a workplace where individuals prioritise well-being, both physical and mental. It requires open communication, shared responsibility, and a collective commitment to ensure every person can perform their duties without fear of harm. This culture thrives on trust, encouraging everyone to speak up about hazards, support one another, and continuously seek improvement. It is more than just compliance with the regulations. It's about creating an environment where safety is ingrained in every action. Similarly, allyship culture embodies the principles of support, inclusivity, and advocacy. Allies actively seek to understand the experiences of women, stand against injustice, and lift up those who may feel silenced or overlooked. So how do we create a diverse and inclusive culture? To foster an environment where women can thrive, we must commit to inclusivity in our policies, but most importantly, our practices. We must literally live and breathe it. This starts at the top. Managers, leaders, lead by example. Set the behaviours and attitudes you want to see in your organisation and hold yourselves accountable. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, but creating an inclusive culture as an employer involves several key strategies. Invest in training, create a more aware workforce that understands the challenges women face and the organisation's inclusive practices. Adopt policies that promote inclusivity, such as flexible working arrangements, menopause policies, equal pay opportunities, the list goes on. Implement recruitment strategies that reach a diverse pool of candidates, encourage the formation of employee resource groups, support professional development, and create channels for open dialogue where employees feel safe to share their experiences and feedback. Establish mentorship opportunities and continuously assess the workplace culture through surveys and feedback to identify areas for improvement. Transparency and accountability will demonstrate a commitment to the values. Finally, celebrate success. Highlight and celebrate the achievements of women within your organisation. Finally, when it comes to organisational allyship, I really wouldn't be doing my job as a lawyer if I didn't actually mention some law. Many of you will be aware of the new duty to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace, which takes effect later this month. From the 26th of October, all organisations will have a legal duty to take reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment. This strengthens existing protection for workers against sexual harassment, and it's well known that women are far more likely to be the victims of sexual harassment. The new duty is a proactive one. It means you must act before incidents occur. You need to anticipate scenarios where workers may be subject to sexual harassment in the course of their employment and take reasonable steps to prevent it occurring. The duty extends to the prevention of sexual harassment by third parties, such as customers, clients, and members of the public. If an employer fails to take reasonable steps, the Equality and Human Rights Commission can take enforcement action, and whilst an individual can't bring a claim for breach of the preventative duty in isolation, employers risk an employment tribunal increasing compensation by up to 25% if the preventative duty has been breached. The law doesn't list a specific step or set of actions an employer must take, and different employers may seek to prevent sexual harassment in different ways, but all of you must take action now, and no employer is exempt from the duty. Similar again to organisations' health and safety obligations, organisations will be expected to conduct risk assessments and implement a range of measures beyond standard policies such as training, monitoring and engaging staff in the process. And the Equality and Human Rights Commission has issued an 8-step guide that recommends various different steps you can take. Now, I'll confess I'm not an employment lawyer. Fortunately, my colleague Laura Wharton, who just happens to be here, is. If any of you want any more information on that duty and your obligations as an employer, grab me or Laura and we can point you in the direction of a webinar that we're holding on Friday, dealing specifically with that duty, because the level of detail that you need to know is well beyond my capabilities as a regulatory lawyer. Now, that's the law bit done. Turning back to allyship. Personally, I'm fortunate that I can think of several people throughout my career, male and female, who have been true allies who have enabled me to progress and really achieve my potential. And I also consider myself blessed that I've got a very supportive network of allies today. But I can also think of several people, again, male and female, at various stages of my career who have unfortunately not been quite so supportive. And I know from some of my conversations with some of you already today that that's an experience many of you in the room can relate to. Sometimes people's own fears and insecurities, the perception there's only room for a few women at the top, breeds unhealthy competition instead of collaboration. It remains a sad reality that women can all too often be the only in the room, even more so in some of the more senior positions. Only this week, the news headlines include a raft of stories about the first or the only, and yes, they're all talking about women. The first woman appointed as Newcastle City Council leader. First female full-time rugby league referee appointed. Claudia Scheinbaum is sworn in as Mexico's first female president. 200-year-old law firm appoints first female senior partner. Why in 2024 is this newsworthy? Why is the fact they are women newsworthy? Why isn't Claudia Scheinbaum simply described as the next Mexican president? In closing, I want to remind you that anybody can choose to be an ally to somebody. But when everybody assumes that somebody will do it, nobody realises that everybody won't actually do it. There is therefore a real risk that nobody will do what anybody and everybody should and can be doing. Together, we can create an industry that values diversity, respects all individuals, and fosters an environment where everyone, regardless of gender, can thrive. Together we can drive progress and ensure that every woman has the opportunity to succeed. And finally, for anyone who remains sceptical about the concept of allyship, I'd leave you with this. A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. From allyship now to unconscious bias. We're now going to invite up the co-founder of Wider Thinking. So here to talk to us, please welcome Jacqui Barrett.
Thank you. Oh, there's nowhere to put water. Okay. Sorry, I've just got to set my timer because I've got a lot to say. Okay. Hello. I'm going to talk to you about nodding, surgeons, balls. By the way, there's commas in between those, in case you think we've suddenly gone really weird. Data, blind spots, bystanding, and allyship. And maybe Harry Styles, if we've got time. So let's crack on. Okay, so it's that time of day when we're about to slump into a bit of a carb coma from that lovely lunch, or thinking how nice a biscuit would be. So, in the words of Olivia Newton-John, let's get physical. Now, I realise that Olivia Newton-John is a bit of a pop reference that some of you are way too young to realise, and I can see some of you nodding already. Well, thank you, because that's what we're going to start with, gently nodding. It really helps me. It's scary up here, and it's really, it can really make a difference, your nodding. Listen to some of these. Not these? These. The head nodders kept me going. I'm a nodder. I want you to know I would have passed out from the fear I would be having. I try to be that person nodding, even if it's awful, because that shit is hard. So please, be my ally and nod, especially when I'm looking your way. Okay, more physical energy later, but next we're going to use our brain. Listen to this riddle, because I may be asking you, I may pick on you for an answer. A father and son are in a horrible accident, but the father dies. The son needs surgery. The surgeon says, I can't operate. That boy is my son. Who is the surgeon? And I just want to make it really clear, this accident did not involve a bus or a coach. Okay. Yes, thank you. Now, I can tell you that the majority of us will have contemplated a male version of the surgeon. We may have thought it was a gay dad, a stepdad, sperm donor, even thought maybe their dad didn't even die, before we considered that the surgeon was female. I know this because I've asked this to thousands of people on our e-learning programme, and nearly all of us do not automatically think of mum. We can't help it. We all have biases, like when we think of a builder, a plumber, or a pilot. It's okay. The first step is recognising that we all have bias. This does not mean I'm racist or sexist or homophobic or misogynistic. That is very different. So the next step is making sure everyone we work with recognises this, awareness, understanding, and then build the scaffolding to offset each other's biases. Mine with your bias with their bias with his bias. And then we do that by having lots of different people around us, because different lived experiences bring different biases and different perspectives, diversity, representation. And we'll come to why that's important in a second. But the first step is how to properly build diversity around us. We should know more about the people already here, who they really are. Find out who is here so we know exactly who is missing, our gaps, our blind spots. Maybe you can see I'm a woman, but Kim talked earlier about intersectionality. Maybe I'm hiding from my colleagues that I'm neurodivergent, or I'm gay, or I have a hidden disability, or I'm talking posher to hide my socio-economic background, or perhaps I'm a registered carer for somebody in my family. Diversity isn't just about gender. You can have a room full of men and still lots of diversity, just not enough. So we need robust data. Get an independent third party, because you need that help. Those in-house anonymous surveys, many of us are unsure just how anonymous they are and don't feel sure yet about disclosing to my manager that perhaps I'm dyslexic or ADHD or gay, which means I'll tick the prefer not to say box, or I'll go with whatever the majority group is. Your data needs to be as true as it can be, otherwise you're wasting a lot of money and a lot of energy. Data. That's a bit of an attention turn off. So, let's get physical again. You don't often see that in a PowerPoint, do you? Okay. These. I've never done this before. This is going to get chaotic. Okay, right. Let's give it a shot. I'm going to throw these out to the room, obviously, not out the window. And I need you, if you catch the ball, you're going to throw it to a different table. I want us to count how many times you throw the ball. The ball needs to get thrown 3 times. And on the 4th throw, it comes back to me. So pay attention, because the ball might come your way, and count. Okay, let's go. Okay. 1, have you done it 3 times? 1, 2, 3, back to me. Thank you. Thank you. Back to me. Go on. Hey! Oh my God, that went so much better than I thought it would. Okay, you're going to understand why we did that in a second. Where are my notes? Yes, first of all, we're now going to watch this video.
Count how many times the players wearing white passed the ball.
Lots of buzzing around. Okay, I'm not going to even ask you. I don't care. Did you see something unusual? Yes! Oi! Oi! Spoiler. Yes. Did anybody not see the gorilla? Thank you for your honesty. Okay. Did anybody not see something happen to the curtain? What happened to the curtain? Okay. Put your hand up. What happened to the curtain? Okay, brilliant. Lots of people did not see what happened to the curtain. Did anybody see a player disappear? One person did. Okay, so I think lots of people didn't. So the point of this is blind spots. You know, when you were throwing the ball, did you see what happened over there by the door? Did anybody see a gorilla? Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. I'll tell you later in the bar, like some kind of joke. A gorilla walks into a bar. Okay, so the point is that we all have blind spots. Firstly, we need to acknowledge this. Instead of thinking we know exactly what's going on everywhere all of the time, even when there are lots of us, something can be happening right under our noses and we miss it, hidden in plain sight. We read about it all the time in the media, including the lack of active bystanders, which I'll talk more about in a second. But firstly, what can we do? And why should we anyway? Who cares about the gorilla? Well, why? This industry needs to be sustainable. We need to reduce our blind spots, reduce our groupthink. We need to keep innovating, keep evolving. And the only way that we can do that is to broaden our horizons, broaden our perspectives, broaden our talent pool, bring in more young blood, retain more older blood, future-proof, be attractive to lots of people and retain that talent. Don't waste loads of money on staff turnover. Find us, keep us. So how do we attract and retain? We make this industry even more welcoming to even more people. Allyship, Laura, she gave some brilliant insights just now. Legislation, policies, and procedures, and I'm going to expand on that. Privilege. Use your privilege to be an ally. Privilege has a connotation of very posh, very white, very rich men. But many of us have many forms of privilege. Our next exercise, physical exercise. Okay, so I want everybody, you don't have to hold your hand up in the air like this, but I want everybody to clench your fists like this. And then you're going to count on your fingers how many times you say yes to any of this. You don't have to show everybody. Did you have access to further or higher education? Did you have choices about earning money during that time? Have you never had to tweak your accent regularly? Have you had choices in having children, and how many, and when, and how? Are you neurotypical? Are you able-bodied? And is everyone in your immediate family? Do you mostly have no fear of travelling alone when it's getting dark, or when you're taking the dog out for a late-night wee? That's the dog, not you. Look at these statements. Can you say yes to any of them? Now, I'm not going to ask anyone to reveal their fists, but I know that most people here will still not be doing this. That's our privilege. Now, let's watch one of Wider Thinking's films that we use in our learning about belonging.
Seeing ourselves as others do is a helpful process of self-reflection. Are you in the majority? If you look around the office, do you see people that look like you, sound like you, and act like you?
Do you feel like you belong? Can you imagine being the only person like you in the room? Have you considered how it feels to be in a minority?
Seeing ourselves as an outsider would help us to be aware of the things we take for granted, especially if we were in a majority or dominant group. Of course, more than one characteristic makes us human.
Even if we're in the majority in one room, we may be the minority in another situation. So we shouldn't make assumptions based on stereotypes.
You may have noticed that while bias can affect anyone and is exhibited by everyone, some groups are more likely to suffer negative consequences. This includes women, ethnic minorities, people with disabilities, neurodiverse people, or LGBTQI+.
In fact, any of the legally protected characteristics, including religion and people from or perceived to be from lower socioeconomic backgrounds.
When a person falls into one or more of these categories, the impact can be amplified or compounded. This is known as intersectionality.
If we do not identify with those categories, we may lack understanding. These individuals have specific challenges that they face. Recognizing where we might have advantages that others do not share is owning our privilege.
It is our role to discover the barriers and how we might help to challenge ingrained behaviours or systems that promote bias and ultimately inequality.
I'm going to come over here because I'm feeling a bit more warmed up now and less nervous. So allyship starts with recognising our advantages, the opportunities and resources and power we've automatically been accorded whilst others have overtly or subtly been denied. Privilege is a resource that can be deployed for good. Own it. Use whatever power and privilege you have to be an ally. Recognise that some people have to work 10 times harder to turn up, to keep up, to get up, to fit in, to get in, to stay in. Allyship, as we talked about, as Laura mentioned, isn't about you, but it starts with you and starts with conversations. So we're going to start now. You'll see on your tables, everybody should have a list like this. I want everybody to take a list. We're going to spend just 1 minute quickly looking through this. And what I want everybody to do is to put a tick next to at least 2 things that you can commit to or implement immediately, and a question mark next to 2 things that you will talk to either your manager or your teams about. And you'll see at the bottom there's a blank space for you to add your own inspiration. In the words of Taylor Swift, just to keep Kerry's pop references going, in the words of Taylor Swift, there's a blank space, baby. So just spend 1 minute just having a quick look. I don't expect you to read it all, but just to have a quick little look at it. Were you going to ask me a question? No, okay. And then, what I also want you to do, whilst you're doing this, is to also look at the person next to you and commit. I want you to commit to somebody next to you about what you're going to do and be accountable to each other. You're going to take that list with you and you're going to ask your teams to make suggestions. I'm going to be quiet for another 10 seconds. Okay, in the spirit of timekeeping, we're going to crack on. But I just want to say, wow, you have now all done something really brilliant. You are making a commitment to allyship. You are going to talk to your people about allyship. And this room's collective power is awesome. It's like my work is done, nearly. Active bystander. Allyship is a very close relation to active bystander, kind of like a cool sibling. An active bystander is someone who not only witnesses unacceptable behaviour, but chooses to act and challenge that behaviour in order to disrupt a potentially problematic situation and keep it from escalating. A bystander can prevent as well as deal with the potential outcome. You're probably familiar with this bystander campaign, some great tips on distraction. But what else? What about in other workplaces? How do we safely challenge? Well, let's expand. Firstly, we all need to know what is unacceptable. Some things are obvious, and some things people may not even realise that they're doing something wrong, and that it's actually not okay to do this thing. We've all heard things like these. Well, no, tough. We all have to keep up. Remember, you want to find us, you want to keep us. Minority groups do not want to keep doing all the heavy lifting of educating, repeating. It's tedious, it's exhausting. We've all got enough going on. Outsource, invest, get the experts in to educate and challenge beliefs. But be kind and have empathy. Let's all recognise this can be really uncomfortable for lots of us, but we'll all learn about ourselves, not just others. All of us play a part. This is not about just training the men. Here are some tips on how we can be an active bystander in the workplace. Only intervene if it is safe to do so. So check your environment, your surroundings. Check yourself. Your emotional state is your choice. Notice the other person's verbal and physical behaviour. How far have they escalated? Resist the urge to say, calm down. But if you speak calmly and slowly, it will often cause the other person to do so as well. Actions, silent stares and body language. You don't have to speak to communicate. Sometimes a look. I have to put my glasses back on because I can't read. Sometimes a look or not smiling at a joke is far more powerful. Silence in a normal conversation is often awkward. Yet it can be very helpful in confrontations. Silence can help people regain composure and buy some time. Lead into silence by putting the onus on yourself. Also, this does allow space for clarity because you genuinely may have got something wrong, and this can allow somebody else, that person, to reflect, giving them a chance to correct themselves. Be a great listener, observer. Body positioning and non-verbal actions can show you're there for a witness, as a witness for someone else. Words. Use statements can make the other person feel angry and defensive. Take ownership of your emotions while letting them know their words and their actions were hurtful. You're not accusing them of being a bad person, but rather their words and actions of being inappropriate. Use social norms. This is not our usual accepted, usual behaviour here. Bring it home. Engage empathy. Call on friendship. Reframe the intervention as caring. Remember, the golden rule is only be an active bystander if it is safe. Now, we all know there are people and situations where we cannot say anything. So what are your processes and systems? Managers, what are you putting in place for your people? And Gareth talked a little bit about that this morning. Oh, I'm actually on my last page. You'll be sorry to hear. Okay, change happens one person at a time, one act at a time, one word at a time. Improving everything by 1% can have a huge ripple effect. And remember, you all have the power to do that now, especially with your list of commitments. So, let's finish by watching some famous allies in action.
You're the first person ever to win 2 Olympic tennis gold medals. That's an extraordinary feat, isn't it?
Well, to defend the singles title, I think Venus and Serena have won about 4 each.
Thank you.
Andy Sam is the first U.S. player to reach a major semifinal since 2009. How would you describe
male player?
I beg your pardon?
Male player, right?
Yes, yeah. First male player. That's for sure.
Yeah, the Williams sisters.
Okay, for context of the next one, I'll be finished in like 20 seconds. the Brit Awards 2023 Best Artist of the Year was a gender-neutral category laden with controversy after announcing an all-male shortlist, despite many women who were eligible and they were shut out, including Charlie XCX, Florence and the Machine, Becky Hill. We made it to Harry.
I'm going to start by, I want to thank my family for being the most supportive, understanding, patient, loving family I could have ever asked for. I want to thank my mum for signing me up for X Factor without telling me, so I literally wouldn't be here without you. I want to thank Niall, Louis, Liam and Zane, because I wouldn't be here without you either. Thank you so much. And I'm really, really grateful for this, and I'm very aware of my privilege up here tonight. So this award is for Rena, Charlie, Florence, Mabel and Becky. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Find me if you want to see more films that we've made, like the Belonging film, or if you want the free access that we provide to our learning programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqui. We're staying for our final part now in the Perceptions and Allyship section. Our final speaker is on the board of Women in Bus and Coach and Director of Buses at Transport for London. Please welcome Lorna Murphy.
Okay, hello. I'm aware that I'm standing between you and your break now and the all-important awards, so I'm not going to keep you for too long. But I'm here today to make an announcement for a new campaign from Women in Bus and Coach. Across the last year or so, the London Working Group has been working with operators and Transport for London to make our workplaces period positive. Excuse me. So period positive is new language, and I'd invite you all to update yourselves on new language around periods. They're often seen as something to be ashamed of or dirty. Even the words sanitary napkins, sanitary towels infers that periods are dirty. They're not. They're just natural, and they have a part to play for everybody who is a woman. So I would like to announce that we are going to be launching a national campaign for all of our corporate members and beyond to make bus, coach and community transport period positive as a sector, something that will help us attract, retain and just generally engage all of our people that work for us. And I would very much like you to get involved in signing up and pledging that you will do your part to play with this campaign. There is a pledge board outside. The one from earlier is full. It looks amazing. I'd like you to do the same for this one, please. We are already aware that there are most of the operators now in London and Transport for London are fully engaged in providing free access to period products, and those that aren't are about to be. We'd like this to go nationally. We do believe some of you are already doing this, and I think it would be a great sell for the industry if we could all sign up to that. Just before the pandemic, 12% of women were basically living in period poverty. And now that's 21%. So in 5 years, it's doubled. And that's scary. Well, nearly doubled. Sorry, my maths isn't great. But that is scary. And on average, a woman will have 13 periods a year for probably 37.5 years at an average cost of £10 per period. So I'll let you do the maths on that, but it's quite a lot. And that rising cost is something we can do something about. So I'd invite you to sign the pledge board over the break. It's outside, as the earlier one was. And that's the campaign. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorna. As Lorna said, we are about to go into the Women in Bus and Coach Awards. So we're going to give you a 10-minute break. We're going to be fairly strict on that. There are coffees outside, and then we will invite you back in. I'd say bring your coffee back in rather than linger and talk out there. Thank you.